Deja vu is a very special experience, and for some reason, I feel like I've already recorded this video once before. Welcome everyone to my channel. I'm here again, and once again, I'm bringing you a vacuum cleaner test. A test of a vacuum cleaner that, to be honest, I've already tested once before. Granted, it didn't have this name back then. It was called the Proscenic P16, and now it's called the Ultenic U20. There are minimal differences between the two machines, but not many. For example, the exterior is almost exactly the same. The machine is housed in the same casing. Back here, the rear section has a slightly different design, but apart from that, the entire machine is housed in exactly the same casing. It has the same filtration system, the same dust container, the same device housing, and the same brush head as the P16 had. So, in this respect, the machine hasn't changed at all. It hasn't changed technically either. If we look closely at the battery, it has the exact same 2200 milliamp hour battery that the previous P16 model had. However, there is some improvement because according to the specs, this machine no longer has a 550 watt motor, but a 600 watt one, and its suction power is not 45,000 pascals, but 55,000 pascals. Of course, in the test, I will examine whether this can actually be felt. So stick with me, take a look at the accessories too, and then we can move on to the test and my experiences. Let's set the machine aside for now and start with the accessories. What hasn't changed compared to the P16? Well, for example, the suction tube. The color has changed, but otherwise, this is exactly the same tube as the one with the P16. It's broken in the middle, which is great because you can easily insert the tube with the accessory, with the head under the bed, and this way you can vacuum much more efficiently without having to bend down or lie on the floor. The tube, well, it's not top of the line, but I wouldn't call it bad either. The material is relatively thin, but I don't think it will break. So actually, this was an impressive piece of equipment, and it still remains a solid choice even today. Similarly, the crevice tool has also remained unchanged in its design, which is clearly made from recycled plastic. Well, this isn't top of the line either, to put it mildly. The material used here is incredibly thin, and honestly, it's pretty ugly to look at too. What still remains frustrating, however, is that the vacuum cleaner's wall mount hasn't changed at all. It is truly the simplest bracket you can possibly imagine. You have to screw it onto the wall with 2 or rather 3 screws, place the machine inside it, and yet it can't even charge the vacuum cleaner at all. Among the included accessories, there's also this handy little cleaning brush, which is a specific kind of hair removal tool. This tool is used to remove fabric and hair that becomes tightly wrapped around the roller brush inside the motorized head. There's also a small brush on the other side which you can use to clean the head. In addition, we also have a HEPA filter. This is of course a spare HEPA filter since there is already one inside the machine. The good news is that, according to the manual, these filters are washable, so you can wash one while the other stays in the machine, and you can swap them as needed. This definitely deserves a big thumbs up for the manufacturer for thinking of this. The little manual can also be considered an accessory, but honestly, I don't think anyone will care about it since this is a stick vacuum cleaner. There's nothing you need to do with it, just vacuum. Obviously, the large motorized head is also an accessory, and this motorized head has actually changed somewhat compared to the P16. This one also has green LEDs at the front, which I think is the best solution for illuminating the floor since you can clearly see the dust on the floor with it. What has changed, however, is the internal roller brush, because with the Proscenic P16 model, we received a roller brush that featured 2 distinct bristle rows positioned right next to each other, one being rougher and the other being softer. With this one, you can already see that there are no bristles. To be more precise, here it's a little bit rougher, and over here it's a bit softer, but right next to the bristles, there is this rubberized fabric material, which is actually a really good solution. I think when it comes to the deep cleaning or thorough vacuuming of your carpets, this can be a remarkably efficient and effective dust removal tool, so it definitely deserves a gold star rating. The head has changed for the better compared to the other machine. As you can see, this is already one of the new generation wider heads, so it's not the old type. The old heads were maybe 18 centimeters wide, while this one is over 20 centimeters, so you can clean a larger area with one sweep than with the old head. Oh, And before I forget, there's one more important thing, namely that inside the head, right behind the brush, there's a comb-like part. The significant advantage of this feature is that it can effectively remove tangled hair and fabric fibers from the brush while it's spinning. So honestly, I don't think you will ever actually need to use this tool at all, just like I didn't during the test. Now let's talk a bit about how the machine works because, well, I have another issue with this device, which I think by now should really be standard in the lower or at least the mid-range category for these machines. And that's the presence of a dust sensor. A dust sensor is useful because it allows the vacuum cleaner to have an automatic mode, so you don't always have to manually adjust the suction power. Instead, the machine adjusts it itself depending on how much dust is on the floor. Well, this vacuum cleaner does not have it, just like the P16 did not have this feature either. So, all we can do is, if we press the button, there's another touch-sensitive switch at the bottom of the display on the back, and with that, we can set the 3 suction power levels. Just like with the sibling model, I have to highlight here as well, that the filter in the suction system has 6 distinct layers. This means that instead of the usual 4 or 5 layers of filtration, here we get a total of 6 high-quality layers. And this is definitely a huge plus, because the dust that gets sucked in won't escape back into the apartment through the back of the machine in any way. Instead, everything stays inside this container. And since we're already talking about the filtration system, let's move on to what it was like to use this vacuum cleaner. And I'm not going to start with the filtration system, but rather with what vacuuming itself was like. As usual, I tested the machine with flour, rice, and cat food, and I have some good news about that. There really isn't any issue with the performance as far as I can remember it performs in exactly the same way as the P16 did. And it costs roughly the same as well, so that is totally fine. What's a noteworthy advantage though is that the vacuum head is positioned relatively high, so pieces of cat food can easily fit underneath it while you are vacuuming. I recently conducted a vacuum cleaner test with a much more expensive machine, and you simply couldn't vacuum up the cat food with it because the head was so low that when you pushed it along the floor, you just ended up pushing the food around with the head and it was unable to suck the debris up. With this machine, there's no such problem. The head is able to suck up that medium-sized cat food, so that's definitely a very, very good point. Of course, there was no problem vacuuming up rice or flour either. Everything went into the container without leaving any residue. And now we can move on to examine the filtration system. The thing is, in this filtration system, inside this container, besides the usual cyclonic separation process, we also have a HEPA filter, a sponge filter, and there's even another one tucked away inside here. Actually, behind this plastic part, there's a secondary sponge filter. And inside that, there's also this cyclonic separation mechanism. With the good solutions, I've noticed that up here on this upper part where the sponge filter is, hardly any dust actually gets through because the cyclonic system separates so well that the dust ends up in the container. Almost only clean air reaches this part up here. And with this vacuum cleaner, just like with the P16 model, this solution works remarkably well because after thoroughly vacuuming up all the flour, when I took it apart and removed the filter, there was absolutely not a single speck of dust or flour to be found in the upper section of the device. This definitely deserves a big 5 out of 5. So not only is it not 4, not even 5, but a 6-layer filter system, and on top of that, it actually works well. There are still 2 important things I need to mention regarding the performance test and the vacuuming process. One of them is the overall noise level. Well, the machine is a bit louder than what the manufacturer claims in their specs, but the noise wasn't really excessive. I measured approximately 71 decibels from about 1 meter away. This was roughly the same as the value measured with the P16, so in this respect, the machine hasn't changed either. And 71 decibels is absolutely not a lot for a vacuum cleaner. The other thing is the weight of the machine, which because of the battery is relatively high for this model, but not so much that it would tire out your hand. Especially during normal vacuuming when the machine is supported by the floor brush through the tube, so we don't really have to hold its weight ourselves. And there's one more thing about vacuuming that I have to mention as a criticism, and this was also the case with the P16. It is exactly this soft and furry head located right here at the very bottom of the tube. because while it looks really cool and it is a fun idea that they put it here, so we can easily vacuum with it just like this. The only real problem is that in the past, you could easily attach these furry heads to the end of the extension tube as well. And if you actually did that, it was really quite easy to vacuum window blinds, the tops of high shelves and other things with it. But with this vacuum cleaner, because of this supposedly clever solution, this clever solution, this option has been lost. So in my opinion, it does more harm than good. Although it's true that it looks good, it looks cool, and it's fun to snap it at the beginning of the video, but apart from that, it has absolutely no other benefit. The question is it worth buying? Well, definitely, since they're asking about 50,000 forints for it. The suction power, as I said with the P16, and I said with the P16 as well, is absolutely worth it, since this suction power is already in the high-end category. There are no issues at all with the assembly, material quality, or operation of the machine. Similarly, there are no issues at all with the large floor brush. All of these are really good quality. What isn't such good quality is the wall mount and the crevice tool, but I don't think you really need to worry too much about those. So overall, I can say that if you need a cheap but powerful stick vacuum, you can confidently buy the Ultenic U20, because for the price they're asking, it's worth it. That's pretty much all I wanted to say today. If you like this video, then check out one of the other 2 videos appearing next to me, and subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, like the video, and do all the usual things you do in situations like this. And of course, obviously come back next week too, because I'll be back with more tests. Until then, be good, take care of yourselves, and let's look forward to spring together. Bye.